Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraya Nashtiprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, starting new chapter, chapter 19, King Jayati achieves liberation. Text number 1 onwards. So after enjoying his life and the young age of his son Puru, now Yayati is about to achieve liberation. How much you can enjoy anywhere? The same senses, same things to enjoy. Shri Shukvacha Saitthamacharan Kamam Stragno Atmanam Buddhva Priyaya Nirvinno Gatham Etamagayata. Shukdev Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, Yayati was very much attached to women. In due course of time, however, when disgusted with sexual enjoyment and its bad effects, he renounced this way of life and narrated the following story to his beloved wife, Devyani. Shrinu Bhargavyamum Gatham Madvidha Charitam Bhuvi Dhira Yasyanu Shochanti Vane Gram Nivasina. My dear beloved wife, daughter of Shukracharya, in this world there was someone exactly like me. Please listen as I narrate the history of his life. By hearing about the life of such a householder, those who have retired from householder life always lament. So when you said there was someone exactly like me, I mean, there is only, all the souls are individuals. So he is basically talking about him. Persons who live in the village or town are called Grama Nivasi, and those who live in the forest are called Vanvasi or Vanaprastha. The Vanaprasthas who have retired from family life generally lament about their past family life because it engaged them in trying to fulfill lusty desires. Prahlad Maharaj said that one should retire from family life as soon as possible, and he described family life as the darkest well. Hitvatma patam griham andakupam. If one continuously or permanently concentrates on living with his family, he should be understood to be killing himself. It's a andhakup, darkest well, blind well. In the Vedic civilization, therefore, it is recommended that one retire from family life at the end of his 50th year and go to one, the forest. When he becomes expert or accustomed to forest life or retired life as a vanaprastha, he should take sannyas. Vanam gato yadharim ashrayat. Sannyas means accepting unalloyed engagement in the service of the Lord. Vedic civilization therefore recommends 4 different stages of life: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. One should be very much ashamed of remaining a householder and not promoting oneself to the 2 higher stages, namely vanaprastha and sannyas. Of course, here Yayati Maharaj and Devyani, they were living and enjoying so-called enjoyment or trying to enjoy the senses. But those who are already in Krishna consciousness, trying to serve Krishna together with wife, family, and everything, that's even better than sannyasi actually. Because one ultimately has to get attached to Krishna. Basta eko vane kashit vichinman priyamatmanah dadarsha kupe patitam sakarma vash gamajam. While wandering in the forest, eating to satisfy his senses, a he-goat by chance approached a well, in which he saw a she-goat standing helplessly, having fallen into it by the influence of the results of fruitive activities. Here, Maharaj Yayati compares himself to a he-goat and Devyani to a she-goat and describes the nature of man and woman. Like a he-goat, a man searches for sense gratification, wandering here and there. And a woman without the shelter of a man or husband is like a she-goat that has fallen into a well. Without being cared for by a man, a woman cannot be happy. Indeed, she is just like a she-goat that has fallen into a well and is struggling for existence. Therefore, a woman must take shelter of her father, as Devyani did when under the care of Shukracharya. And then the father must give the daughter in charity to a suitable man, or a suitable man should help the woman by placing her under the care of a husband. This is shown vividly by the life of Devyani. When King Yayati delivered Devyani from the well, she felt great relief and requested Yayati to accept her as his wife. But when Maharaj Yayati accepted Devyani, he became too attached and had sex life, not only with her, but with others like Sharmishta. Yet still he was dissatisfied. Therefore, one should retire by force from such family life as Yayatis. When one is fully convinced of the degraded nature of worldly family life, one should completely renounce this way of life, take sannyas, and engage himself fully in the service of God. Then one's life will be successful. Otherwise, we live like this he-goat and she-goats. Tasya uddharanopayam basta kami vichintayan vyadhat tirtham uddhritya vishana agrena rodhasi. After planning how to get the she-goat out of the well, the lusty he-goat dug up the earth on the well's edge with the point of his horns in such a way that she was able to come out very easily. So if you remember, Devyani was also in the well. Sharmishta had thrown her in the well and took away all her clothes elsewhere. Attraction for women is the impetus for economic development, housing, and many other things meant for living comfortably in this material world. Digging up the earth to make a way out for the she-goat was a laborious task. But before accepting the she-goat, the he-goat underwent this labor. The union between male and female provides the impetus for gaining a nice apartment, a good income, children, and friends. Thus, one becomes entangled in this material world. So, this is how the material world looks very attractive for a man when he has a woman and the whole world is running around trying to get the most beautiful women one can get and then satisfying the demands. Okay, I want a house, I want a good income, I want children, need to have friends, we need to go out to the mall and this and that and on and on and on. Sotirya kupat sushroni tamev chakme kila tayavritam samudvikshya badayo adya kantakamini divanam shulam preshtam nidvasam yam kovidam sa eko ajvrishas tasam bhavinam prativartanam reme kama grihagrasta atmanam navabuddhyata. While the she-goat when the she-goat, who had very nice hips, got out of the well and saw the very handsome he-goat, she desired to accept him as her husband. When she did so, many of the she-goats also desired him as a husband because he had a very beautiful bodily structure and nice mustache and beard and was expert in discharging semen and in the art of sexual intercourse. Therefore, just as a person haunted by a ghost exhibits madness, the best of the he-goats, attracted by the many she-goats, engaged in erotic activities and naturally forgot his real business of self-realization. So the he-goat had a nice mustache and a beard, and this is what they have by nature. But sometimes some men are also emulating this he-goat by having a mustache and a beard, which is called goatee now. And it's very much in fashion these days. Materialists are certainly very much attracted by sexual intercourse. Yan mathunadi grihmedi sukham hi tucham. Although one becomes a grihastha or householder to enjoy sex life to his heart's content, one is never satisfied. Such a lusty materialist is like a goat, for it is said that if a goat meant for slaughter gets the opportunity to enjoy sex before being killed. Human beings, however, are meant for self-realization. Tapo divyam putrika yena sapla. Human life is meant for realization of the self, the spiritual soul within the body. A materialistic rascal does not know that he is not the body, but a spiritual soul within the body. However, one should understand his real position and cultivate knowledge by which to get free from bodily entanglement. Like an unfortunate person who acts madly, haunted by ghosts, a materialist haunted by the ghost of lust forgets his real business so that he can enjoy so-called happiness in the bodily concept of life. So this is how the whole world is running. If we just detach ourselves from the world and just look at the crowd, just sit there anywhere. Look at the crowd, how people are running around and what are they running around for? This is what we get. Just everybody is trying to enjoy their senses. When the she-goat who had fallen into the well saw her beloved goat engage in sexual affairs with another she-goat, she could not tolerate the goat's activities. So when Devyani saw him engaged in sexual activities with Sharmishta, she could not tolerate. Tam durhridam suhridarupam kaminam kshanso hridam indriya aram utsrijya swaminam dukita yayo. Aggrieved by her husband's behavior with another, the she-goat thought that the he-goat was not actually her friend, but was hard-hearted and was her friend only for the time being. Therefore, because her husband was lusty, she left him and returned to her former maintainer. The word Swaminam is significant. Swami means caretaker or master. Devyani was cared for by Shukracharya before her marriage. And after her marriage, she was cared for by Yayati. But here the word Swaminam indicates that Devyani left the protection of her husband, Yayati, and returned to her former protector, Shukracharya. Vedic civilization recommends that a woman stay under the protection of a man. During childhood, she should be cared for by her father, in youth by her husband, and in old age by a grown son. In any stage of life, a woman should not have independence. So she was heartbroken and she went back to her father. Being very sorry, the he-goat, who was subservient to his wife, followed the she-goat on the road and tried his best to flatter her, but he could not pacify her. Tasyatra dvija kashyad daja swami achinad rusha lambantam vrishanam bhuya sandade arthaya yogavit. The she-goat went to the residence of a Brahman who was the maintainer of another she-goat, and that Brahman angrily cut off the he-goat's dangling testicles. But at the he-goat's request, the Brahman later rejoined them by the power of mystic yoga. So that Brahman was maintainer of another she-goat, means he had his own wife. Here Shukracharya is figuratively described as a husband of another she-goat. This indicates that the relationship between husband and wife in any society, whether higher or lower than human society, is nothing but the same relationship between he-goat and she-goat. For the material relationship between man and woman is one of sex. Yan mathunadi grimedi sukham hi tucham. Shukracharya was an acharya or expert in family affairs which involve the transfer of semen from he-goat to she-goat. The words Kashyad Aja Swami expressly indicate herein that Shukracharya was no better than Yayati, for both of them were interested in family affairs generated by Shukra or semen. Shukracharya first cursed Yayati to become old so that he could no longer indulge in sex. But when Shukracharya saw that Yayati's emasculation would make his own daughter a victim of punishment, he used his mystic power to restore Yayati's masculinity. Because he used his power of mystic yoga for family affairs and not to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this exercise in magic of yoga was no better than the affairs of he-goats and she-goats. Yogic power should be properly used to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else. But those who are materialistic, they cannot think of anything else except just how to enjoy materially. Whether yogic power or some other austerities we perform and then we get some gains. So what do we use it for? Material sense gratification. That's it. As the Lord himself recommends in Bhagavad Gita, of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Sambad vrishna soapi hiyajya kuplavya kalam bahutitham bhadre kamer nadya pitushyati. My dear wife, when the he-goat had his testicles restored, he enjoyed the she-goat he had gotten from the well. But although he continued to enjoy for many, many years, even now he has not been fully satisfied. When one is bound by affection for one's wife, one is attached to sexual desires that are very difficult to overcome. Therefore, according to Vedic civilization, one must voluntarily leave his so-called home and go to the forest. Human life is meant for such tapasya or austerity. By the austerity of voluntarily stopping sex life at home and going to the forest to engage in spiritual activities in the association of devotees, one achieves the actual purpose of human life. So that is the way to achieve purpose. Not just to continue indulging in family life till we leave our bodies. Tataham kripana subhru bhavatya premiyam trita atmanam na bijanami mohitastav mayaya. Oh, my dear wife with beautiful eyebrows, I'm exactly like that he-goat, for I'm so poor in intelligence that I'm captivated by your beauty and have forgotten the real task of self-realization. So Maharaj Yayati did not blame Devyani. You think I'm so poor in intelligence and you're so beautiful that I'm captivated by you. If one remains a victim of the so-called beauty of his wife, his family life is nothing but a dark well. See, that's a key word. If one is victim of the so-called beauty, but if they're together serving the Supreme Lord, captivated by the beauty of the Supreme Lord, then there's nothing more than that. Existence in such a dark well is certainly suicidal. If one wants relief from the miserable condition of material life, one must voluntarily give up his lusty relationship with his wife. Otherwise, there is no question of self-realization. Unless one is extremely advanced in spiritual consciousness, household life is nothing but a dark well in which one commits suicide. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommended that in due time, at least after one's 50th year, one must give up the household life and go to the forest. Vanam gato yadharim ashrayat. There one should seek shelter at the lotus feet of Hari. So taking shelter of lotus feet of Hari, one should do, actually that's why this training should be there from the very young age. Prahlad Maharaj said from 5 years onwards, this training should be there. Then one can be perfectly situated when he becomes old. Yat prithivyam vrihi avam hiranyam pashvasturya na duyanti mana pritim punsa kamha atasyate. A person who is lusty cannot satisfy his mind, even if he has enough of everything in this world, including rice, barley, and other food grains, gold, animals, and women. Nothing can satisfy him. So this is the condition of a lusty person. Nothing, nobody can satisfy. Improvement of one's economic condition is the aim and object of a materialist. But there is no end to this material advancement, for if one cannot control his lusty desires, he will never be pleased. Even if he gets all the material wealth of the world. In this age, we see such, in this age, we see much material improvement, but still people are struggling to get more and more and more and more material opulence. Although every living entity is a part of the Supreme Being, because of lusty desires, one continuously struggles for so-called betterment of one's economic condition. To have a satisfied mind, one must give up his heart disease of lusty desires. This can be done only when one is Krishna conscious. If one becomes Krishna conscious, then he can give up his heart disease. Otherwise, the disease of lusty desires will continue, and one cannot have peace in his mind. Bhakti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Sakli, Ashanta. They all are Ashanta. They are not peaceful. They cannot be peaceful. Because this lusty desires, a desire to possess more and more, it just burns in the heart continuously. Na jatu kama kamanam upabhogena shayati avisha Krishna vartameva bhuya eva bhivardhate. As supplying butter to a fire does not diminish the fire, but instead increases it more and more. The endeavor to stop lusty desires by continual enjoyment can never be successful. In fact, one must voluntarily cease from lusty desire, from material desires. One may have enough money and enough resources to satisfy the senses, but still not be satisfied. So the endeavors to stop lusty desires by enjoying can never be successful. The example given here is very appropriate. One cannot stop a blazing fire by trying to extinguish it with butter. Sometimes materialistic people say, and this was the philosophy of Osho, he said, just load it up with butter. The fire will be extinguished. Give more butter. But the problem with that philosophy is the propensity to enjoy does not go away. Maybe at that moment, at that time, for time being, he'll say, nah, this is disgusting. But the propensity, the inclination does not go away. In their, I don't even want to say ashram, in their whatever they had created here in America, the city, what they would do, of course, we know about unlimited and unrestricted sex was there, and similarly eating also. For eating, they would provide so much of food to eat that next to the table, they would have cushions or pillows. So you just eat and just sleep here. You should eat so much that you cannot even eat anymore. Okay, so for that time, for few hours, a person would not want to eat, would not even want to look at the food because he had already eaten so much. But what would happen next day? He would get hungry again. So this kind of mental concoctions, they don't work. They don't work at all. Yada na kurute bhavam sarvabhuteshva mangalam samdrishtes tada punsa sarva sukmaya disha. When a man is non-envious and does not desire ill fortune for anyone, he is equipoised. For such a person, all directions appear happy. Prabodhanand Saraswati says, Vishwam Purna Sukhaya. When man becomes Krishna conscious by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, for him the entire world appears happy and he has nothing for which to hanker. On the Brahma Bhuta stage of the platform of spiritual realization, there is no lamentation and no material hankering. As long as one lives in the material world, actions and reactions will continue. But when one is unaffected by such material actions and reactions, he is to be considered free from the danger of being victimized by material desires. The symptoms of those who are satiated with lusty desires are described in this verse. As explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when one is not envious, even of his enemy, does not expect honor from anyone, but instead desires all well-being even for his enemy, he is understood to be a Paramhamsa, one who has fully subdued the lusty desires for sense gratification. So that can only happen when one becomes Krishna conscious. Otherwise, it is not possible. Even Shukracharya was not out of this envy or the propensity to enjoy. Ya dustyaja durmate bher jiryato yana jiryate tam trishnam dukha nevaham sharma kamo drutam tyajet. For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up. Even when one is an invalid because of old age, one cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations. We have actually seen, especially in the Western countries, that men who have reached more than 80 years of age still go to the nightclubs and pay heavy fees to drink wine and associate with women. Although such men are too old to enjoy anything, their desires have not ceased. Time deteriorates even the body itself, which is a medium for all sensual satisfaction. But even when a man becomes old and invalid, his desires are strong enough to dictate that he go there and here and there to satisfy the desires of the senses. Therefore, by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, one should give up his lusty desires. This is the only way. Otherwise, I've seen here people get retired from work and then they have good enough money, or they have pension coming, or they have government is supporting them in their old age. And what do? Either they go to clubs, bars, or they go to casinos to waste their money and the rest of their life. And what will be they thinking of over there? Nothing productive, definitely not. When one is Krishna conscious, he gets more and more happiness by discharging duties for Krishna. Such a person spits on sense gratification, especially that of sexual enjoyment. An experienced, advanced devotee is no longer interested in sex life. The strong desire for sex can be subdued only by advancement in Krishna consciousness. Matra swastra duhitra va navivikta asano bhavet balvan indriya gramo vidvansam api karshati. This is instructions of Maharaj Yayati. One should not allow oneself to sit on the same seat, even with one's own mother, sister, or daughter. For the senses are so strong that even though one is very advanced in knowledge, he may be attracted by sex. So this is how powerful our senses are. And this is what Krishna told Arjuna. Here in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Indriya, the senses are so strong it can take away the mind or the intelligence of the most thoughtful. Learning the etiquette of how to deal with women does not free one from sexual attraction. As specifically mentioned herewith, such attraction is possible even with one's mother, sister, or daughter. Generally, of course, one is not sexually attracted to his mother, sister, or daughter. But if one allows himself to sit very close to such a woman, one may be attracted. This is a psychological fact. It may be said that one is liable to be attracted if he is not very advanced in civilized life. However, as specifically mentioned here, with Vamsam api karshati, even if one is highly advanced, materially or spiritually, he may be attracted by lusty desires. He may be attracted. The object of attraction may even be one's mother, sister, or daughter. Therefore, one should be extremely careful in dealings with women. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was more strict in such dealing, especially after he accepted the sannyas order. Indeed, no woman could come near him to offer him respect. Again, one is warned herewith that one should be extremely careful in dealings with women. A brahmachari is forbidden even to see the wife of his spiritual master if she happens to be young. The wife of the spiritual master may sometimes take some services from the disciples of her husband, as she would from his son. But if the wife of the spiritual master is young, a brahmachari is forbidden to render service to her. Why? It's not that man is bad or woman is bad, but this attraction or the senses can get distracted. It is there, it is possible, it has happened. Purnam Varsha Sahasram me Vishyan Sevato Sakrit Tathapi Chanu Savanam Trishna Teshu Pajayate. I have spent a full 1,000 years enjoying sense gratification, yet my desire to enjoy such pleasure increases daily. Maharaj Yayati is explaining in terms of his actual experience how strong desires, even in old age. Tasmad etam aham tyaktva brahmanya dhyaya manasam nirdvando nirahankara charishyami mrigyasa. Therefore, I shall now give up all these desires and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, free from the dualities of mental concoction and free from false prestige. I shall wander in the forest with the animals. So he just wanted to basically take sannyas and go and wander in the forest and meditate on the Supreme Lord. To go to the forest and live there with the animals, meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the only means by which to give up lusty desires. Unless one gives up such desires, one's mind cannot be freed from material contamination. Therefore, if one is at all interested in being freed from the bondage of repeated birth, death, old age, and disease, after a certain age, one must go to the forest. After 50 years of age, one should voluntarily give up family life and go to the forest. The best forest is Vrindavan, where one need not live with the animals, but can associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who never leaves Vrindavan. Cultivating Krishna consciousness in Vrindavan is the best means of being liberated from material bondage. For in Vrindavan, one can automatically meditate upon Krishna. Vrindavan has many temples, and in one or more of these temples, one may see the form of the Supreme Lord as Radha, Krishna, or Krishna Balram, and meditate upon this form. As expressed here by the words Brahmani Adhyaya, one should concentrate one's mind upon the Supreme Lord Par-Brahman. This Par-Brahman is Krishna. As confirmed by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Param Dhama, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Krishna and his abode Vrindavan are not different. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Aradhya Bhagwan Vrajesh Tanya Astadham Vrindavanam. Vrindavan is as good as Krishna. Therefore, if one somehow or other gets the opportunity to live in Vrindavan, and if one is not a pretender but simply lives in Vrindavan and concentrates his mind upon Krishna, one is liberated from material bondage. So, you all living in Delhi, Noida, those places, you have such a great opportunity. If not to live in Vrindavan, at least to visit Vrindavan regularly, you can go. One's mind is not purified, however, even in Vrindavan, if one is agitated by lusty desires. One should not live in Vrindavan and commit offenses. For a life of offenses in Vrindavan is no better than lives of the monkeys and hogs there. Many monkeys and hogs live in Vrindavan, and they are concerned with their sexual desires. Men who have gone to Vrindavan but who still hanker for sex should immediately leave Vrindavan and stop their grievous offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. There are many misguided men who live in Vrindavan to satisfy their sexual desires, but they're certainly no better than monkeys and the hogs. Those who are under the control of Maya and specifically under the control of lusty desires are called Maya Mriga. Indeed, everyone in the conditional stage of material life is a Maya Mrig. It is said, Maya Mrigam Daitepsita Anvadva Dhavat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas to show his causeless mercy to the Maya Mrigas, the people of this material world, who suffer because of lusty desires. One should follow the principles of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and always think of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Then one will be eligible to live in Vrindavan, and thus his life will be successful. So we have to become first eligible to live in Vrindavan, and then by mercy of Radha Krishna or Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we'll be allowed to live in Vrindavan, where we can just concentrate our life in thinking about Krishna and hearing about Krishna and seeing Krishna and serving Krishna. That's all one needs to do. And we get full mercy of Vrindavan, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of Srila Prabhupada. And that's it. That will be the perfection of life. Drishtam shrutam asad buddhva nanu dhyayena sandishet sansritam chatma nasham cha tatra vidvansa atmadrik. One who knows that material happiness, whether good or bad in this life or in the next, on this planet or on the heavenly planets, is temporary and useless. And that an intelligent person should not try to enjoy or even think of such things, is a knower of the self. Such a self-realized person knows quite well that material happiness is a very cause of continued material existence and forgetfulness of one's own constitutional position. So material happiness, this is what it does. It makes one forget one's constitutional position. We think I'm the controller, I'm the proprietor of this, I'm the enjoyer of this, I should be having this. Instead of that, we should be understanding that I'm just 10,000 part of the tip of the hair. That's my size. And all I can do is serve Krishna. Krishna is the proprietor, controller, or enjoyer of everything. I'm not. I'm here to serve. The living entity is a spiritual soul, and the material body is its engagement. This is the beginning of spiritual understanding. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. The real mission of human life is to get free from engagement in the material body. Therefore, Krishna descends to teach the conditioned soul about spiritual realization and how to become free from material bondage. Yada yada hi dharmasya. The word dharmasya glani means pollution of one's existence. Our existence is now polluted and it must be purified. So dharmasya glani is not that the Hindu dharma is in danger or Christian dharma is in danger. No. Dharma means our constitutional position which we have forgotten. The ignorance or impure consciousness. So that is dharma glani. That is a pollution of one's existence. The human life is meant for this purification, not for thinking of happiness in terms of the external body, which is the cause of material bondage. Therefore, in this verse, Maharaj Yayati advises that whatever material happiness we see and whatever is promised for enjoyment is all merely flickering and temporary. Avaram Bhuvana. Even if one is promoted to Brahmaloka, if one is not freed from material bondage, one must return to this planet Earth and continue in the miserable condition of material existence. One should always keep this understanding in mind so as not to be allured by any kind of sense enjoyment or even the thought in this life or in the next. One who is fully aware of this truth is self-realized. But aside from him, everyone suffers in the cycle of birth and death. This understanding is one of true intelligence, and anything contrary to this is but a cause of unhappiness. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Teva Shanta. Only a Krishna conscious person who knows the aim and objective of life is peaceful. All others, whether karmis, jnanis, or yogis, are restless because they have so many desires and thus cannot enjoy real peace. And Yayati Maharaj wanted real peace and he wanted to go for self-realization. Shukdev Goswami said, after speaking in this way to his wife Devyani, King Yayati, who was now free from all material desires, called his youngest son Puru and returned Puru's youth in exchange for his own old age. He said, I don't want this young age now. I want to be old. King Yayati gave the southeast to his son Dhruyu, the south to his son Yadu, west to his son Turvasu, and the north to his son Anu. In this way, he divided the kingdom. Yayati enthroned his youngest son Puru as the emperor of the entire world and the proprietor of all its riches, and he placed all the other sons who were elder than Puru under Puru's control because he had followed the orders or desires of his father. Asevitam varshapugam shad vargam vishyeshu sah kshanen mumuche nidam jat paksh ivadvija. Having enjoyed sense gratification for many, many years, O King Parikshit, Yayati was accustomed to it, but he gave it up entirely in a moment, just as a bird flies away from the nest as soon as its wings have grown. So this is a real teaching of Bhagavatam, not that how Maharaj Yayati was enjoying with Devyani. That Maharaj Yayati was immediately liberated from the bondage of conditioned life is certainly astonishing. But the example given here is appropriate. A tiny baby bird, dependent fully on its father and mother, even to eat, suddenly flies away from the nest when its wings have grown. Similarly, if one fully surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately liberated from the bondage of conditioned life, as promised by the Lord Himself. So it is for everybody and anybody, it doesn't matter who. Kirat, Hun, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhi, Rishumba, Yavan, and Prakas races, and even others addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. For He is the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto Him, unto the Lord. Lord Vishnu is so powerful that He can deliver anyone at once if He is pleased to do so. And Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, can be pleased immediately if we accept His order by surrendering unto Him, as Maharaj Yayati did. Maharaj Yayati was eager to serve Vasudeva, Krishna, and therefore as soon as he wanted to renounce material life, Lord Vasudeva helped him. We must therefore be very sincere in surrendering ourselves unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Then we can immediately be liberated from the bondage of conditioned life. This is clearly expressed in this next verse. So, Lord Krishna can do miracles. Immediately, in a moment, He can do that. What's so difficult for Him? Satatra nirmukta samasta sangha atmanubhutya vidhut trilinga parayamle brahmani vasudeve leve gatim bhagavatim pratita. Because King Yayati completely surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, he was freed from all contamination of the material modes of nature. Because of his self-realization, he was able to fix his mind upon the transcendence, Parabrahman Vasudeva, and thus he ultimately achieved the position of an associate of the Lord. The word Vidhuta meaning cleansed is very significant. Everyone in this material world is contaminated. Because we are in a material condition, we are contaminated either by Sattva-guna or Raja-guna or by Tamo-guna. Even if one becomes a qualified Brahman in the mode of goodness, he is still materially contaminated. One must come to the platform of Shuddha Sattva, transcending the Sattva Guna. Then one is Vidhut Trilinga, cleansed of the contamination caused by the three modes of material nature. This is possible by the mercy of Krishna. And how this cleansing process takes place? Sharnvatam Swakatha Krishna. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desires for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. A person trying to be perfectly Krishna conscious by hearing the words of Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita certainly has all the dirty things cleansed from the core of his heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says, Cheto Darpana Mahaprabhu. The process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord washes away the dirty things accumulated in the core of the heart. As soon as one is freed from all the dirt of material contamination, as Maharaj Yayati was, one's original position as an associate of the Lord is revealed. This is called Swarup Siddhi, or personal perfection. So Swarup Siddhi, so this word we will come across if we go to some Babajis. But that Swarup Siddhi, Prabhupada explains, as soon as one is freed from the dirt of material contamination, not if the dirt is still there, we think we can have Swarup Siddhi or personal perfection. Not going to happen. Maharaj Yayati, he surrendered, and then it is said he ultimately achieved the position of an associate of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord. And he had surrendered. It doesn't happen just like that. That we have all the material desires, all the material contamination, and still we can get Swarup Siddhi. No way. And when we are eligible, we are pure, Krishna can do miracles. Who can stop him? Shrutva Gatham Devyani Mene Prastobhamatam Matmanaha Stri Punso Snehvakla Vyat Parihasam Iveditam. When Devyani heard Maharaj Yayati's story of the he-goat and she-goat, she understood that this story, which was presented as if a funny joke for entertainment between husband and wife, was intended to awaken her to her constitutional position. See, this is the beauty of association with devotees. When one actually awakens from material life and understands his real position as an eternal servant of Krishna, this is called liberation. Muktir Hitva Nitarupam. Under the influence of Maya, everyone living in this material world thinks that he is a master of everything. One thinks that there is no God or controller, that one is independent and can do anything. This is the material condition. And when one awakens from this ignorance, he is called liberated. Maharaj Yayati had delivered Devyani from the well, and finally, as a dutiful husband, he instructed her with a story about the he-goat and she-goat, and thus delivered her from the misconception of material happiness. Devyani was quite competent to understand her liberated husband, and therefore she decided to follow him as his faithful wife. She is, after all, daughter of Shukracharya, now a wife of such a great person, Maharaj Yayati. So she understood her position as well. Sasannivasam suhridam prapayam eva gacchatam vigyayeshvaratantrana maya virichitam prabhu sarvatra sangamotsrijya swapamena bhargavi krishne manah samaveshya vyabhino lingamatmanah. Thereafter Devyani, the daughter of Shukracharya, understood that the materialistic association of husband, friends, and relatives is like the association in a hotel full of tourists. The relationships of society, friendship, and love are created by the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Exactly as in a dream, by the grace of Krishna, Devyani gave up her imaginary position in the material world. Completely fixing her mind upon Krishna, she achieved liberation from the gross and subtle bodies. One should be convinced that he is a spirit, soul, and part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman Krishna, but has somehow or other been entrapped by the material coverings of the gross and subtle bodies, consisting of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and falsity. One should know that the association of society, friendship, love, nationalism, religion, and so on are nothing but creations of Maya. One's only business is to become Krishna conscious and render service unto Krishna as extensively as possible for a living being. In this way, one is liberated from material bondage. By the grace of Krishna, Devyani attained this state through the instructions of her husband. So that is why instructions, Sri Prabhupada has given us wonderful, wonderful instructions all over Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and then now when we get to Chaitanya Charitamrita, again, beautiful instructions. But they all come back heavily, Prabhupada, sometimes very heavily, speaks about, you're not this body, rascal, fool, get over it. And our only business is to become Krishna conscious, nothing else, nothing. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedase Sarvabhutadivasaya Shantaya Brihate Namah. O Lord Vasudeva, Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation. You live as a super soul in everyone's heart and are smaller than the smallest, yet you are greater than the greatest and are all pervading. You appear completely silent, have nothing to do, but this is due to your all-pervading nature and your fullness in all opulences. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. How Devyani became self-realized by the grace of her great husband Maharaj Yayati is described here. Describing such realization is another way of performing the bhakti process. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and other pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, are especially important. By hearing from her husband about the greatness of Lord Vasudeva, Devyani certainly became convinced and surrendered herself unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is knowledge. Surrender to Vasudeva is a result of hearing about him for many, many births. As soon as one surrenders unto Vasudeva, one is liberated immediately. Because of her association with a great husband, Maharaj Yayati, Devyani became purified, adopted the means of Bhakti Yoga, and thus became liberated. So both Maharaj, although the chapter is entitled King Yayati Achieves Liberation, but Queen Devyani also achieved that. So they both became purified. So thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of 9th canto, 19th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled King Yayati Achieves Liberation. So we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
It was
Mata.
very nice to hear.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.